49ers fans, lock in, because what is happening in Santa Clara right now is not just random off-season noise. This is real contender pressure. This is what it sounds like when a team knows the Super Bowl window is still wide open, but the heat is getting turned all the way up. We've got a mock draft splitting the fan base, a pass rush that is screaming for help, a Brandon Aiyuk situation that still refuses to die, and a draft prospect at wide receiver who could change the whole direction of this offense. So hit like, subscribe, and stay with me all the way through, because the read on the Niners right now is simple. Either this team attacks the title race with conviction, or it wastes a massive opportunity. Let's start with the mock draft, because this is where you can already feel the tension between what looks logical on paper and what actually makes sense for a team trying to win a championship right now. In this scenario, the 49ers take Utah offensive tackle Caleb Lomu in the first round. And let me be clear, this is not about saying the player is bad. He's not. The talent is real. The pass protection is real. But the question is bigger than the player. The question is timing. The question is priority. The question is whether a team under this much pressure to win now can really spend its first pick on a guy who might need development, while there are more urgent needs staring them right in the face. Sure, there's a real argument for it. Trent Williams is 37. His contract situation has had questions around it. At some point, the Niners have to prepare for the future. That part is absolutely fair. But contenders do not live only for tomorrow. Contenders have to protect today too. And when you look at this roster, a whole lot of people see edge rusher or wide receiver as the positions that could deliver more immediate impact in the title chase. Honestly, I get that completely. Because if Lomu comes in, what exactly is the plan? Is he competing? Is he depth? Is he sitting for a year? This isn't a quarterback stash. This is a roster built to win right now. You've still got Nick Bosa as the anchor of the defense. You've still got expectations in the building, and you cannot afford to whiff on a first-rounder when the margin for error is this thin. So the issue is not the name. The issue is the message that pick would send. It would feel like a long-view structural move when this fan base wants a punch-you-in-the-mouth impact move that helps the Niners go straight at the top of the NFC. And then the mock gets even more controversial with Jadarian Price in the second round. Look, I like the fit in Kyle Shanahan's system. I do. But spending that kind of draft capital on a complimentary back when the offensive line, pass rush, and receiver room are all flashing warning lights, that's the kind of move that would instantly reignite every criticism people have about this front office's priorities. If protection is a concern, if pressure off the edge is a concern, if the receiver room has real uncertainty, how does running back become the urgent answer right now? Now, the fourth round names are a little more interesting. Jude Bowery makes sense to me there. LT Overton? That kind of swing is easier to sell. Developmental tackle later, value hunting, filling holes without burning premium capital, that's much easier to understand. Because the truth is simple. Every single pick for this team has to push the 49ers closer to a championship. That's the standard. That's the pressure. So I want to know from you right now, no fence sitting, no soft takes. Would you spend that first-round pick on an offensive tackle? Or would you go after someone who can hit the field and move the needle immediately? And if the mock draft starts arguments, the pass rush situation should start alarms, because this one is not a luxury problem. This is an actual roster urgency for a team trying to stay on top of the NFC. The 49ers know they are short on outside pass rushers going into the draft, and that got even worse after Bryce Huff's shocking retirement at 27. That changes the whole picture. That raises the pressure, and it forces everybody to look at John Lynch and ask the obvious question. What is the short-term plan here so Nick Bosa isn't carrying this entire burden by himself? Yes, getting Bosa back matters. Of course it does. But no real contender goes into a season just hoping one guy will fix everything off the edge. Not after a sack total that low. So when a cheap, familiar, low-risk option is sitting right there in front of you like Clelin Ferrell, that conversation gets very interesting very fast. We are not talking about a superstar move. We are not talking about a flashy headline. We are talking about smart roster management. And for a team with championship expectations, smart matters. Ferrell came in quietly last year and still put up 4 sacks in just 8 games with San Francisco. In this context, that matters. If the market isn't beating down the door for him, the cost should stay low. If he already knows the system, knows the coaches, knows the locker room, then you're removing one of the biggest offseason problems right away. And for a contender, that kind of signing is not about winning the headline cycle. It's about surviving the long season. That's why I think bringing Clelin Ferrell back on a cheap one-year deal makes too much sense. It doesn't stop you from drafting an edge. It doesn't stop you from adding another veteran. It doesn't handcuff the roster. It actually does the opposite. It protects you from desperation. And smart contenders avoid desperation at all costs. There's a huge difference between entering the draft wanting to reinforce a position and entering the draft needing one pick to save it. So let me ask you this. Is Farrell just a stopgap? Or is he exactly the kind of cheap, functional, under-the-radar move a contender should make before the draft even gets here? Drop it in the comments, and if you're riding with this kind of real roster talk, hit like and subscribe, because this team does not have time for unnecessary risk. And then there's Brandon Aiyuk, because this is not just another off-season soap opera. This goes right to the heart of the 49ers' competitive identity. The reporting says Washington knows about Aiyuk's interest in playing with Jaden Daniels, but the Commanders are not expected to trade for him, and if he ever became available, they'd only be interested in a short prove-it type of deal. And that's where this starts to sting for San Francisco, because when the market views a player with caution or limited appetite, the pressure shifts right back onto the 49ers. This is not just about losing talent, it's about what it symbolizes. Deebo Samuel is already gone, Juwan Jennings has uncertainty around him too, and now Aiyuk's situation keeps hanging over a receiver room that used to be one of the defining strengths of this offense. For a contender, that matters. Teams chasing a title cannot let one of their most important position groups drift into gray area for too long. Now, to be fair, the other side has to be said too. The 49ers do not owe Aiyuk an easy exit. If there's a trade, the return has to make sense. If there isn't, then maybe the organization just decides to close the chapter and move forward. That is hard-nosed roster management, and contenders often have to make cold decisions. But cold decisions still demand hot planning. If Aiyuk leaves and there is no real answer lined up behind it, the pressure lands directly on the front office. And maybe the most telling part of this whole story is that Washington seems willing to wait. That tells you the league might be looking at this situation and seeing risk, uncertainty, maybe even depreciation. And when that happens, you have to decide fast. Are you still betting on the value recovering, or are you ending the noise and moving on? Because living in the middle usually gets you burned. To me, it's simple. Either Lynch turns this into an aggressive reshaping of the receiver room, or the narrative is going to keep growing that Santa Clara is reacting too late while the championship window is still demanding bold moves. So tell me straight, are you holding Aiyuk and waiting for a better outcome, or are you ending this saga now? And what if the answer to all this receiver drama isn't a veteran patch job, and it isn't some lukewarm replacement move, but a draft prospect with real upside to change the shape of the offense? That's why Chris Bell is so fascinating. The scouting buzz around him is easy to understand. Big frame, physical player, explosive after the catch, productive, versatile, dangerous with the ball in his hands. And when you put that kind of skill set next to Kyle Shanahan, it's not hard to see why fans start dreaming. But let's be disciplined here. This is not a clean, risk-free first-round projection. Bell is coming off a late ACL injury, and that changes the math. The talent pops. The fit is exciting. The upside is obvious. But the risk is real. And for a team under this much pressure to win now, first-round injury risk has to be weighed very carefully. That's why the second round feels so interesting. Suddenly the value equation changes. You still get a player who could become a major weapon in this system, but you're not spending your most sensitive premium asset to do it. What really jumps out with Bell isn't just the body type or the speed. It's the combination of toughness, possession ability, and yards after catch juice. And that should absolutely get attention in Santa Clara, because this offense has always been at its most dangerous when it has guys who can turn a routine touch into a violent momentum swing. If the 49ers are heading into a new era at receiver, then it makes a whole lot of sense to target a player who feels like a weapon, not just a replacement. Sure, maybe he needs time. Maybe the rookie year ramp-up is slower. Maybe the recovery tests everybody's patience. But contenders also have to know when to invest in the right talent, not just plug the nearest hole. And if Chris Bell falls into the right range, I think the 49ers should be all over it. Because at the end of the day, the message is clear. If Aiyuk is uncertainty and the receiver room has lost some of its weight, San Francisco cannot answer that with fear. It has to answer it with smart aggression. That's what this whole offseason comes down to for me. Urgency. Urgency in the draft. Urgency on the edge. Urgency with Aiyuk. Urgency in keeping this offense looking like a real contender. The championship window is still open, but title windows do not wait around for indecisive teams. This roster still has the talent. It still has the backbone. It still has the chance to make a real run. But now the front office has to match that with conviction. So sound off in the comments. Which one of these situations worries you the most right now? And if you believe this team still has a real shot to make noise, hit like, share this with another Niners fan, subscribe to the channel, and stay locked in, because the race for the Lombardi has already started.